Okay, for our first guided assignment, we are going to be creating a paper cut layered lesson, which goes over just building up the layers using Gaussian blur and adding texture to your artwork. So my first mini example is this. There's still so much more that I could do with this. I just wanted to kind of play around with adding some little details and shadows throughout, even the little Loch Ness monster down here. But you guys are going to create a mini artwork like this. I'm going to have you guys follow the steps, complete the same artwork so I can check your steps and your guidance and look at your time lapse. We will then brainstorm our first project, and you guys will be creating your own version of the paper cut lesson that encompasses a scene or setting, landscape, creatures, and a color scheme of your own choice. So to do this, we're going to have different layers. We're going to have, let me mark here so you can see what I'm going to say. We're going to do a background layer, and it's all on alpha lock, so it's not going to let me. We're going to do a background layer, and then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers on top of that, and then add the layers to do the shadows, and I'll show you how to add the texture so that it gives more of that paper feel to the final product. So you're going to go to your gallery, you're going to add, and we're going to do a square for this lesson. And I'm going to start by building up my background and moving forward. I like to move from the back to the front of the canvas so that I could build up those layers. When you do your final project, you can go from the front to the back if it's a preference. Just the way that the layers build up on top of each other through the box up top is that it's easier to go from the back to the front. So we're going background to foreground. So I'm going to start by selecting a color, and I'm going to do a really light blue, and I'm just going to color drop right into my canvas here. Now notice I don't have my circle yet. I'm not going to do that until the very last layer. For this, we are going to create a sun and some clouds and build up from there. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to choose my sun color. So let's do, since I'm doing blues, I'm going to choose orange, since that is the complement. I am going to use down here in calligraphy the monoline brush so that it's really easy to color drop into. And isn't that a perfect circle? But remember, if you draw your circle and hold your pen down, it'll bring this little option up. You can hit circle, and there you go. And I'm going to color fill that circle orange. I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to do my first layer of clouds. So I'm going to go back down here in history. If you're on the disc, down here in history, it should have your background color. So I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to scroll to a little bit of a darker blue. Make sure I'm on my new layer. And I'm just going to draw some clouds, making sure that from end to end it touches both ends of the canvas so that when I color drop, it fills it all the way up. I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to hit a new layer, come up here to the color, pick a darker blue, from end to end, draw just some little lumpy clouds. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Again, I'm going to come in here, add a layer, choose a darker blue. Now I'm just going to go maybe add a diagonal to fill those clouds. And one more layer. I'm going to choose a darker blue. And I'm going to go the opposite. So I'm on my new layer. Just like little humps as we go along. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. I'm going to add one more. Oops, that's not my layers. Add one more. I'm going to choose white. And this is how I'm going to create that circle canvas in the middle. So I'm going to shrink my canvas just a little so that I can see all of the edges. And again, you don't have to have the perfect circle. I'm just going to make sure it fills as much as possible. Hit circle, and then you can drag and adjust the size if you would like. So that it fits where you want it. And I'm going to fill around that. So here is my beginning of my canvas. So if you look at your layers, you have your background, your sun, 4 layers of clouds, and then you have the front piece. Now here's where it gets a little bit confusing. I want to go in and add this shadow effect to my pieces, to my different layers. So I like to do this all at once. You can choose to do it one at a time, but everything except my background layer, I'm going to swipe it to the left and hit duplicate. Swipe it to the left, duplicate. And I want to do that for each layer of my clouds and my sun. So you can see here I have 2 circles, 2 dark clouds, medium blues, light blue, and 2 suns. I'm going to find black, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. So I'm going to start with my sun because it's my lowest layer. I'm going to make sure I'm on the bottom layer. This is the back layer of the sun. This isn't the one that's in the front. I'm going to take my black and I'm going to drop it on there. Now you don't see it, but what I'm going to do is come up here to this little magic wand tool, my adjustments, and go to Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur blurs out the edge line of your layer. So what I'm going to do is drag my pen from left to right, and you'll see the percentage at the top go up. I like to drop it around 10%. And that's going to give me a nice even shadow around my object. Now mine, I had it a little off center. I can go to my transform up here and drag it if I would like to, so it's off center, but that's totally up to you. So for each of my colored layers, I'm going to choose the second one, the one that's on the bottom, drag black to it, come up here to my adjustments, click Gaussian blur. I'm going to drag my pen from left to right on the screen until it hits 10%. I'm on layer 4, the medium. I want black. I'm going to drag it, adjustments, Gaussian blur, drag left to right. It keeps changing to white here. Adjustments, Gaussian blur, from left to right until I hit 10%. If you want more shadow so it looks like they're even further apart, you can. I just stick to the one that's about 10%. Gaussian blur, drag my pen along the screen until it hits 10%. And last but not least, my top layer, I'm going to do the same thing. What this does is it creates a shadow effect on my screen so that it looks like each of these has a little bit of a hovered layer to it. Now you can adjust it even more. Like I said before, if you wanted to, make sure you're on the black layer for each of them. You can transform it if you want to challenge yourself a little bit or play with offset shadows. Click on the layer, go to transform, and just drag it to the right or the left, but I'm going to drag those shadows to the right. Again, just by taking my transform tool and ever so slightly moving that shadow over. Last but not least, my sun. Oop, too far. So here are all my layers ready to go. If you would like to add that paper texture to each of your layers, there's an extra step involved. For the paper texture, since we can't really add many brushes to our canvas or to our brush library over here, I'm going to go over to drawing Not drawing, sorry. I think it's under drawing. Nope, it's sketching. Just kidding, sorry. I've been playing on the iPad a lot today. So we're gonna go over to sketching and click soft pastel, and it's gonna give you this little paper texture when you use the brush on top of your paper. And I'm going to go over here, and so that I don't mark on all my layers, I'm gonna show you guys a trick. I'm gonna click on layer 7, which is my top layer, my white layer, and I'm going to click right on the picture, and I'm gonna hit alpha lock. Alpha lock, if you see it, gives you a little checkerboard pattern around your color filled section. That means when you use your brush, it is only going to affect that white layer itself. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have it on alpha lock, I'm going to color drop. And to pick up color across your canvas, you're going to click this little blue square on the top, on the left, next to your brush size and your opacity toolbar. And I'm going to find that white, go up to my color, and here's where it gets confusing. I just want to pick a little bit darker of a shade than the one that's already there, so that when I have my brush go over that layer, it gives me a slightly darker texture. So I'll do it with the next one. I'm going to go to the blue, the darkest blue cloud here. I'm going to click the picture, and I'm going to hit alpha lock, so that the only thing that colors is the dark blue cloud. I'm going to tap out of that. I'm going to click my color selection tool, pull the dark blue, and come in here and adjust it just a little bit darker. Make sure I'm on the right brush still. And when I color over, it's going to give me that colored texture that looks like paper. I'm going to repeat this step. I'm going to make alpha lock. Choose my color. Make it a little darker. And it's just a habit. I always check my brush to make sure I'm on the right one. Next layer, alpha lock. Select my color. Make it darker. Again, check my brush. You do not have to check your brush every time. That is my little quirk. I won't do it this time. Alpha lock. Color selection. Make it darker. Fill in that layer. For the sun, I forgot to alpha lock it. Alpha lock. Color selection. You could go lighter with your colors too if you wanted to. If I go lighter here, you can see what it does. You don't see it as much depending on the color. There's my orange. And then my last layer, you don't have to alpha lock the last one because it's the background, so it's not going to cover everything else. Let me get out of here. Choose my blue. Make it a little darker. Again, I always hit the brush thing. Again, it's just a habit because I tend to switch brushes up. But here are my layers so that you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4 clouds, a sun, a background, and my white layer on top. So we are going to do this together. You guys are going to create something as similar to this as possible. Your clouds are going to look a little bit different. Your sun might be a little bit of a different color, or you can choose to do, a different shade of blue. But I want to see 4 layers of clouds with a sun and a background, and then a circle frame over it. And this will help me check for understanding that you know the steps and the procedure. If you want to see how you did, you can always come up here to video and watch your time-lapse replay. It's kind of fun watching it all fill in. But that way you will submit that to me before you start your final one.